The college season starts today, so let's dive into my first big board / mock draft for the 2025 NBA Draft. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break it down. At number 30, we start with 6'8" wing Noah Penda. Penda is a smart and willing off-ball player who knows when to cut and does so with some positional athleticism and size. I think he needs to finish plays more often, and the French prospect has started this season well, but he needs to keep that up. Continuing his improvement from 3 will be key, but I like his overall playmaking, feel for the game, and defensive upside. Kwame Evans Jr. comes in at 29. The Oregon forward is a toolsy 4-man with questionable offense, but he had an intriguing statistical two-way profile on low usage with interesting athleticism as well. Evans' defensive indicators were very impressive, and assuming he holds up on offense, I think he can defend multiple positions on the wing and in the front court. The thing is, I'm not sure how the 20-year-old scores in the NBA with virtually no self-creation and needed improvements at the rim and from 3. That said, Evans is not a lost cause. I'm lower on Trey Johnson than most right now, although I admit that at 28, he definitely has room to move up. What I like is that Johnson is a pure shot maker with decent size for a 2-guard. He's definitely more skilled and smooth than explosive, but he gets buckets no matter what. Sometimes the Texas freshman reminds me of Cam Thomas. However, I feel like Trey is a one-dimensional player right now and a limited athlete. I'm not sure what he does if asked to play off the ball, plus I don't see his value on defense. It's not like Johnson only takes difficult shots, but he doesn't do enough of anything else on a consistent enough basis for me to be higher on him in preseason. First-year Alabama forward Darion Reed is number 27 for me right now. To be honest, I'm unsure about his playing time since Alabama's front court is pretty stacked and Reed is still very young. If he's not a one and done, I would not be surprised. But I really like what I've seen from Reed so far as a bouncy off-ball mover who's productive on low touches and finishing plays. I prefer him closer to the basket, but he can shoot and make set threes, and he's fluid enough when putting the ball on the floor. Like I said though, I'm waiting to see how much Reed will play, and I think his ultimate role still needs to take more shape, even though I like the potential quite a bit. Alex Tui has probably done enough in his 2 NBL seasons to be higher than 26, but he has a lower ceiling and a safer floor than some of the prospects coming up. The Australian wing is a steady and physical decision maker who I have few questions about fitting in a complementary role at the 3 and probably the 4. The Sydney Kings prospect can catch and shoot from 3, or he can catch and make a decision. He's also capable in transition a little bit. However, Tui's athleticism and foot speed is limited on both ends, and I don't think that his defensive versatility will translate the same way. Plus, he needs to remain consistent for the entire season and not fizzle out. At number 25, Syracuse freshman Donnie Freeman is a late bloomer with length, pop, and perimeter upside at 6'9" or 6'10". Freeman has experience with the Bahamas national team already, and he shoots threes, attacks closeouts fluidly with his length, and hits turnarounds from the post and the elbows. However, Freeman is still really skinny, he can struggle versus contact, and I'm not convinced about his shot selection. His ceiling is pretty high, but I also consider his floor to be very risky. Rocco Zikarsky is in danger of falling out of my top 30 altogether, but he remains intriguing enough to stay in at 24. That said, the Australian center has seen a less important role with less minutes than I expected in his second NBL season. Right now, I'm not convinced that he ends up as a 2025 prospect. The pitch on Zikarsky is that he's a 7'2" tower at the rim who can develop into a two-way vertical threat. Right now though, I feel like he's a bit stiff turning his body, he has not played high minutes as a pro, and some of the things that a center needs to naturally do are not coming instinctually to him. The game moves too fast for Zikarsky still, but he's only 18. Alex Karaban profiles as a quality role player in the NBA, and his numbers last season were really good, but I do think that his impact on games can be a bit streaky. The UConn junior is a capable three-point shooter on very high volume who can also make decisions off the catch and has a steady all-around game while competing on defense. Karaban is 6'8" with a 6'11" wingspan, which helps him on both ends. He has a lower ceiling than some of the guys below him, but I think a very safe floor. North Carolina freshman Ian Jackson is a relentless shooting guard who's electric getting downhill. He's very annoying to defend against and fun to watch with his changes of direction and shots off the dribble. Jackson's shot selection is prone to getting a bit wild, and I have questions still over how many minutes he'll play in his first year, but few players in this freshman class get hot like Jackson. The overtime elite alum is also not one-dimensional since he can score off the ball as well. Jackson is older for a freshman, but I think I'm higher on him right now than most. Dink Pate was the youngest pro in American basketball history, and he spent last season with the G League Ignite. Even though the Ignite program no longer exists, Pate was able to show off his high upside as a big ball handler with some passing creativity and willingness to shoot. That said, for all of his flashes, the now Mexico City Capitanes prospect was also very inefficient. Pate needs to demonstrate that he can convert threes, he needs to cut down on avoidable turnovers, and I'll be watching his defense a lot more closely this year. Hugo Gonzalez comes in at number 20, although the Real Madrid prospect will slide down if his playing time does not see an uptick. Gonzalez is an explosive athlete who can play in transition, cutting, and has started operating more under control as of late. The Spanish wing is inconsistent as a shooter though, and he needs to rein in his aggression on both ends much better. Until Hugo polishes his game and shows consistent production as a pro, even though to be fair, his context is complicated, it's hard for me to be higher on him. Sergio De La Rey will be a surprise pick at 19, but I like him more than Gonzalez, and I'm looking to place an early bet on the Valencia point guard. The Spanish prospect is a big playmaker at around 6'7", and he started to show some interesting flashes with his team this season. De La Rey is a pick-and-roll playmaker with passing creativity and a capable three-point shooter. In some ways, he reminds me of Keyshawn George's draft profile, which eventually skyrocketed up boards, although there's a chance De La Rey doesn't even end up declaring for this draft. Jalil Bethea takes a lot of tough shots, but he also makes them, and he has a certain degree of explosiveness that separates him from similar guard prospects like Trey Johnson. The Miami prospect is fluid, chaining dribbles into his pull-ups, although his shot selection could leave a bit to be desired in high school. He'll have to build on that as a freshman. Bethea reminds me a bit of a guard like Anthony Simons, with similar questions about blending passing and scoring, his skinny frame, and his defensive outcome, while all the same maintaining a really intriguing offensive profile. Ben Sahaf, my number 17 prospect, is having a great start to the season with Ulm in Germany. The Israeli guard can play both backcourt spots, and I like his instincts as a scorer combined with his skill as a passer. Sahaf will continue to play well this season and put up numbers, but I have some questions over his NBA future. In particular, I'm not sure that he has the required athleticism to get past defenders on a consistent basis, and because of that, I'm also unsure about who he defends. Noah Essengue is super young, and he's starting to expand on his intriguing flashes from the perimeter at a long and lanky 6'9". At Ulm, the still 17-year-old Essengue is starting to hit threes, put the ball on the floor, and generally make himself felt with his activity. On defense, the French forward has tools with his length and his pop, but he needs to get stronger. For now though, my main question is on offense, which is how Essengue can score regularly. He can struggle to do that even right now in Europe, so this close to the lottery, Essengue is somewhat of a high upside swing. Motieju Skrivas is a huge body in the middle at 7'2", 260 pounds with a standing reach around 9'2". Skrivas didn't play much as a freshman, so he needs to show growth, especially around the rim where he misses too many shots for a center. However, I think the tools exist for him to get more comfortable as a sophomore, finishing plays on both ends and maybe even shooting some threes. The Lithuanian center had a strong showing with his country's under-20 team this summer, and he should expand on that at Arizona. Colin Murray-Boyles, the rising South Carolina sophomore, put up monster numbers as a freshman. The Gamecocks prospect can catch and finish at the basket and also do some work out of face-ups and in the post. His clear swing skill, though, is expanding his range. CMB didn't take any threes as a freshman, and he can also start further up the floor as a ball handler. On defense, however, I have fewer concerns, as I really like Murray-Boyles' intersection of strength, length, movement, and production. UConn's Liam McNeely has a case to be considered the best shooter in this freshman class. He can make spot-ups, catch and shoots, movement shots, and be used in transition, out of screens, etc. Then, McNeely leverages his three-point shooting to make decisions off the catch, attacking in a straight line, or dishing out some basic passes. Liam is an average athlete, at least offensively, with some issues against length and size, but he has an easy and valuable NBA role to project. Plus, these athletic limitations show up less on defense, where McNeely makes smart decisions and competes in space better than you might expect. Drake Powell is a two-way wing with plus athleticism, a defensive track record, and enough on-ball upside. Powell is better as a connector than a lead guy, which is not a knock on him. He defends multiple positions hard, can convert his spot-ups, and make decisions out of a few dribbles. The UNC freshman is a consistent shooter with his mechanics and percentages though, so I will be watching that. But even in games where he's not scoring, he can be impactful as a defender. Powell, who comes with positive off-season reviews, would be a few spots higher on my first board if I was more convinced about his playing time and role at Carolina to start the season. I'm high on Arkansas point guard Boogie Fland as he fits what NBA teams look for nowadays. He's a rangy pull-up shooter who can work out of screens, in the mid-range, and taking threes. But Boogie can also play off the ball next to another guard, as will be the case this year, or a primary initiating wing. Fland is a little small positionally, not glaringly so, but I'll be watching his finishing in the half court this season. On defense, the Arkansas freshman plays bigger than 6'2", anticipating passes, using his quick hands, and leveraging his fast first step. Right now, I feel like Boogie Fland is the next John Calipari guard to go lotto. Asa Newell is a 6'10" forward with defensive production and versatility, shooting upside, and positional athleticism. The Georgia prospect gained attention playing for Montverde, but I think the chance exists for Newell to stand out even more in a bigger focal role. Newell is a long, springy athlete at the rim, but he's also improved his three-pointer over time. However, the UGA freshman needs to improve his offensive consistency now, and I think he'll always be better in a role where he's being set up. Con Knipple will also be among the best shooters in this draft class. The Duke freshman can make threes, catching and shooting, as well as off movement, but there's more diversity than that to his game. Knipple is really skilled playing off 2 feet in the mid-range and closer to the basket. He has some athletic limitations, but also real strength and some craft. Knipple is a bucket with good size, and he makes steady reads. This applies on defense as well, although those athletic limitations I mentioned might be more of a factor on that end. Khaman Maluach is my number 8 prospect as one of the youngest guys in this draft, but with surprising experience, a record of production, and untapped potential. Maluach flashes an expansive skill set, so maybe he's being perceived as having a low floor, but I actually think that the basics he's already shown give him a pretty safe outcome as a 7'2" center. The South Sudan big will be able to shoot the 3 to some extent, but for now I'm more focused on how he screens, rolls, catches, and finishes plays. On defense, Khaman has to improve how he reads pick and rolls, but he has potential as a play finisher who blocks shots above the rim and can also use his size and mobility to smother ball handlers. Kasparas Yakuchonis is a high-volume ball handler who makes plays in the pick and roll to facilitate for others and create his own shot. The Lithuanian point guard has great positional size, and he's aggressive, making himself known all over the stat sheet. Yakuchonis can organize his team and get a bucket just the same. The Illinois freshman is physical driving to the basket and crafty finishing at the rim. From the perimeter, he's a high-volume shooter, fluid chaining moves together, and highly comfortable taking step backs and side-step threes. Yegor Demin comes in at 6, and he's very close to Yakuchonis, but he gets the edge because of his defensive upside. Demin is an even bigger point guard, coming in at around 6'9". He makes quick decisions, is creative and adept in the pick and roll, and he shows enough scoring upside despite some more recent struggles. The BYU freshman leverages his size well to create mismatches, he finds advantages in transition, and he has clear off-ball use. To stay this high up though, the Russian freshman will need to shoot the ball well, and he has to show me that he can handle playing against physicality in the paint. VJ Edgecombe, as I've previously said, is the most electrifying athlete in this draft with incredible open court pop and two-way uses. The Baylor freshman is lethal in transition, mostly as a scorer I think, even though he can also pass. Then, against a set defense, VJ is a willing and productive cutter and spot-up shooter. On defense, Edgecombe already produces events, and he's disruptive, turning steals and blocks into assists and buckets. The main question with VJ is whether he has enough polish to truly play as an on-ball guard against set defenses. The biggest item to address here is likely his shooting, although I think his handle might be just as important. Ace Bailey is an exceedingly tough shot maker with great positional athleticism as a wing at 6'10" with long arms and real bounce. For Bailey, it often doesn't matter that the defender is there, he's going to be able to pull up and shoot over most guys. The Rutgers freshman can light up a gym on both ends in a moment's notice, but his shot selection also goes awry plenty of the time. Bailey will need to contain that in college and play more under control. Ace will also need to show me that he can play against contact as he struggles to beat physical defenders and operate in traffic. Bailey is not stiff, but his ball handling and passing also have some functionality questions, so my short-term outlook on him is as a two-way play finisher and shot maker whose defensive upside is enticing in a sneaky way. Nolan Traoré from France has a fast first step, a creativity to his game, and potential as a pull-up shooter. The French point guard had a nice end to last season with Saint-Quentin, and this is his first full year as a pro. Traoré started off a little slowly, but he's adjusted well since then. My biggest question now regards his finishing. It's not been that great to kick off the season, but on the flip side, I do like what Traoré has shown with his three-point volume and process. Dylan Harper checks in at number 2. The Rutgers guard is a strong and crafty ball handler with plus size for his position, steady decision-making, and scoring production. Harper will be setting up this Rutgers team, so the ball is going to go through him fairly often. I want to see Dylan continue to knock down threes, and he's also a limited vertical athlete, so that is worth remembering, but I'm not too concerned. Right now, Harper's combination of polish, strength, dribbling, passing, and shooting puts him at number 2. Cooper Flagg is my clear number 1 before the college season starts. Flagg is among the best two-way prospects I have ever evaluated, with the best motor that I have ever seen. The Duke freshman never takes a play off, and his will to win is insane. Flagg will be productive off the ball, especially as a help-side defender, but he's shown growth on the ball as a shooter and playmaker over the last 2 years. Of course, anything can happen, and the draft this early on is still wide open, but barring a major surprise, I really find it hard to see myself removing Flagg from this number 1 spot.